Hi, welcome to another edition of Time Off Fishing. Today, we're going to be talking about driving on the beach a little bit, and more specifically, airing down. Now, airing down is the process of letting air out of your tires so that when you drive on the beach, you have a much better time. There is a lot of reasons why you would want to let the air out of your tires. There's a few tools that you're going to need to let the air out of your tires. There's a few do's and a few don'ts to letting the air out of your tires, and we are going to cover all of that in this edition of Time Off Fishing. Now, we got the GoPro working finally. Some of our other cameras are broken. We're not very good with the cameras, but we are very good at fishing, driving on the beach, getting to where we need to go to try to catch some of the fish that we really enjoy. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. The first thing we're going to discuss are the tools that you need to let the air out of your tires. Now, it's not very complicated, but the first thing that I'm highly going to recommend is a tire gauge. Don't get a cheap stem gauge. Get a good gauge, a good dial gauge that really helps you adjust and know exactly how much air you have in your tires, also known as the PSI, pressure per square inch. That's a very important thing to understand, and we'll get into that as well. Another tool that you're going to need is a simple thing to depress the valve to let the air out of your tires. You know, an ink pen. Here we have an Allen wrench, a screwdriver, anything you can use just to press on that valve to let the air out of your tires so you can adjust accordingly. The final tool that I would highly recommend is an air compressor if you are not familiar with letting the air out of your tires. So if it's going to be your first time letting the air out of your tires, make sure that you have a compressor close by, like at the gas station or somewhere else where you can make the adjustment if need to. We're also going to discuss why you would want to let the air out of your tires. The first reason that you really want to let the air out of your tires is so that you don't get stuck. If you are stuck on the beach, then you are digging yourself out or waiting for a tow truck, God forbid, hoping that the tide doesn't come in and mess up your vehicle. So with all these factors going on, you know, when you think about it, if you're stuck, you're not fishing or looking for seashells or whatever you plan to do with your time off. So don't get stuck, let the air out of your tires. Another really good reason to let the air out of your tires when driving on the sand is so that your drivetrain doesn't overheat. You know, if your engine overheats, which it really will because it's working so much harder because it's not moving through the sand, you know, then you're gonna have issues. God forbid, I've even seen a vehicle burn to ashes on the sand simply because they didn't let the air out of their tires. Another thing that you really want to worry about is your transmission. If your transmission is having a lot of wear and tear because it's working extra hard simply because you didn't let the air out of your tires, well, you know, you're not gonna have a good time. And then, of course, when you don't let the air out of your tires, a lot of times what is in your wake or behind you is the washboard effect. Or holes, you know, because you got rutted in or whatever the situation may be, which means that another beach goer, maybe even your friend who's coming up behind you, is having to deal with that washboard effect on the sand or God forbid, a hole that might even get them stuck. So, you know, that's three really good reasons to just go ahead and let the air out of your tires. Now, another thing that you really want to consider when discussing all this is letting the air out of your tires is, you know, what kind of vehicle do you have? If you have a diesel dually with an 80 pressure per square inch tire, then this video and the PSI ratings aren't going to be applicable to you necessarily. I'm going to be discussing letting the air out of the tires in vehicles that typically normally run at a 35 to 40 pressure per square inch. Now, when we deflate the tires down, a lot of people will say go to 18, maybe even 17 PSI, and there's really nothing wrong with that. I personally drop my air down to around 21, maybe 22 pressure per square inch from my normal 35. The reason that I don't go all the way to 18 or 17 simply is that if I do get stuck running at a 21 or 22 PSI, I have the option of letting more air out of my tires to get more of a snowshoe effect, because when you let the air out of your tires, it makes the tire plane out. It makes it a flatter surface that covers more of the sand, allows it to grip the sand a little bit better, and essentially you won't be getting stuck nearly as easily. So running at 21, 22, maybe even 20 PSI allows you to drop a little bit more air out of your tires once you're on the sand if that is the need. So we're really excited. 2019 is in the past. 2020 is in the future. We got a clear view of what's going on ahead of us. We finally got the GoPro working. Some of our other cameras are not working, but that's okay. We're not going to focus on the cameras as much as we are going to focus on what we know and what we do. And what we do is fish. We're excited that you're with us. We're going to put the GoPro on and get into a little bit more detail about letting the air out of our tires. Hi, Ward Trotter here with Time Off Fishing, and I got a quick question for you. What's more stupid than hanging out in a gas station with GoPro on top of your head? What looks more foolish than that? I'll tell you. Being stuck on the beach because you did not let the air out of your tires of your four-wheel drive vehicle. So that's what we're going to do real quick. We're going to take a quick look at letting the air out of your tires. Quick side note, of all the tools that I said we might want to include to air down, one thing you always want to keep in your glove compartment is a roll of quarters, because if you end up in an air compressor that needs quarters, then you won't be fumbling around trying to get the change to make the air compressor work. Another thing to take into consideration is that if you pay for the air compressor like $25 or $75 or $1.50, you know, just to get that air compressor to work, $1.50 or 75 cents to make that air compressor work, is probably not going to be the best compressor. It's probably going to take a lot of time to fill one tire up. Conversely, if you're at a gas station or a place that has free air, typically those compressors are very strong, and you need to be very careful not to blow your tire up. So right now we're going to check our tires. They're going to be at around 35 psi. We're going to drop them down to around 21 psi. We're going to roll that on the GoPro just because why not? It's fun. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. All right, so we are going to let the air out of all four of our tires before we drive our four-wheel drive vehicle on the beach. You know, so the first thing you do when you want to let the air out of your tires is go ahead and check it. Because, you know, if you've got a leak or something to that effect, then you may not need, you know, to let the air out. But it's always good to check the air in your tires first. And you will see we're right at about 35, maybe a little bit less than 35 psi, but close enough. And we are going to drop the PSI in this tire down to around 21 PSI. Now, all valves are different. Some are going to release air very quickly. Some are going to release air a little bit slower. A valve might be corroded or have salt buildup, which means the air is not going to escape as quickly. So be mindful of that. I am right next to a compressor at a gas station with quarters in my pocket in case I have to fill up or make adjustments, and we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about how to fill the tire back up. So this is a process that we want to complete for all four tires before driving out on the beach. We're going to take it down to around 21 psi, and you can use an ink pen, a screwdriver, the back stem, you know, of a stem gauge. I don't like the stem gauges for checking the PSI, but nonetheless, here I have a little Allen wrench, and I'm going to stick it in and let the air out. And it's going to take a while, and I'm going to show the whole process. I'm probably not going to speed up while doing this, but just letting the air out. Letting the air out. It's got to be done. And that's not going to be enough, but we're going to give it a quick check anyway. Comes back, and that's at around 25 psi. So we're going to let a little bit more out. And that one's at about 23-ish. We're going to let a little bit more out. Boom, right at about 21. You know, you could give it just a dash more if you wanted to, but that's going to have it right there. 21 psi. We're going to repeat that process for all four of the tires on the vehicle before we put it into four-wheel drive and drive it out onto the sand. That way we'll have that snowshoe effect, and hopefully we won't get stuck. We won't burn up our transmission or our engine. We won't leave a washboard in the sand or holes in the sand. for our neighbor and our friend that's coming up behind us. And we're all going to have a good time, which is exactly what this company is about, utilizing the time off, because we all wish that we had more of it. We appreciate you watching this video and getting some time off. My name's Ward Trotter. Okay, we are at the air compressor. Gonna put some quarters in it. Got it right behind me. The sun is beaming in my eyes. Good gosh, but if I face the other direction, you're not gonna be able to see the video. But anyway, we're gonna put some quarters in the air compressor. We're gonna fill this tire back up so that everyone can see just real quick how we go about doing that. Hey, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you think it's important to let the air out of your tires before driving your four-wheel drive vehicle out on the beach. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Get involved. This is not about me. This is about us. So thank you so much for watching. We're going to put the air back in the tire and go on about our day. You know, you really don't want to drive around on low PSI on the concrete. Okay, so we're getting ready to put air back into the tires, which you definitely want to do before driving around on the asphalt. You don't want to drive all over the place on a really low PSI. A few miles is okay. Watch it if you're making really sharp turns, especially on that low PSI. You don't want the tire kicking off of the rim. But you know, all it is a little bit of change going into this compressor. This one needs 75 cents, and it's gonna be hard to hear me once it fires up, because it is working. Sounds like air's coming out of it, which is a good deal. Take the cap off. It never hurts when doing this. You know, you can blow a little bit of sand out of that valve. Make sure you blow some grit out of there. And then go ahead and try to fill her up. We're gonna try to put this tire back to 35 PSI. Most of these money compressors where you put 75 cents or $1.50 into the compressor are gonna have a little valve on it to try to give you a gauge of where you're at with it. Try not to trust those. Try to have your good dial gauge with you so you can do your own personal check. Yeah, because this one's off. This one says that's got a lot more air in it than it does already. This is going to take a while. So you're just going to hang out. You don't want to overfill this tire. You know, you don't want to put 60 PSI in a tire that's only rated for 40 PSI. Of course, it can be detrimental to the tire. You don't want a tire to explode, especially on your way back home from enjoying your time off, because you are not going to have a good time if that is the case. Give it another quick check, and we are up to like 30, 31. We want to try to get more air in there if possible. We're looking for a 35 PSI, and you're going to want to do this on all 4 tires. Make sure you hit all 4 before you hit the road. Let's see where we are again. Yep. That's where they start to get slowing down on you, is right when you're about to get filled back up. Let's see if we can't tighten this one up just a little bit. Trying to get it as much air, or as close to 35 PSI as we possibly can. And like I said, if it's a compressor where you don't put money in it, and only the places that have free compressors, you have to be really careful. There's a few places with free air where your tire would probably be exploded by now. You know, some places don't take that much at all. We are going to be right at 36. We're going to let a little bit of air out. Boom. 35 PSI. And we're going to repeat that process on all 4 tires. Make sure you put the cap back on the tire, and you are set for driving back on the asphalt. Hey, my name is Ward Trotter. Remember to hit that like button if any of this has been helpful for you. We really appreciate you getting a little bit of time off and getting out there, doing some fishing, doing some safe driving on the beach, and have a wonderful day. Another thing, go ahead and put the air hose back correctly. If you don't put the hose back and it gets run over or fouled up, then the next person's not going to be able to use it. And there is such a thing as, you know, air hose etiquette. So try to take care of the air hose so that it'll take care of you next time you're using it. That's